What's going on, guys? Welcome to your next tutorial, and what we're going to do in this tutorial is work with the functionality of the paddle, move it over with some Rays and Raycast hits that we're familiar with a little bit, and we're also going to work with the ball and getting it to bounce properly, because we're going to run into some problems once we actually set up our game. So let's just jump into it. We're going to create a new script for our paddle, so just right click, JavaScript paddle is going to be the name of the script. And let's double click that, open that bad boy up, and again it's pretty much the same as the menu script that we created. It's going to take a private variable that's going to be called array, and it's going to be of the type array, and also a private variable that's going to be our hit. Again, that's from the Raycast hit. And then all we're going to do within our update method is we have to set up what our array actually is each time that the user clicks the button. So we're going to say array is equal to, again from the perspective of the camera dot main, the main camera, screen point to ray, exact same as we did previously, and then we get the input dot mouse position. And that's just setting up array. Now we want to check if array actually makes a collision with some sort of an object or some sort of a collider box that we're familiar with as well. So we're going to set up another if statement. We're going to relate to the physics class dot raycast, and then we type in the two parameters, which is our ray object and also our hit object. And let's add some inside our brackets here. So now what we're going to do is each time we touch the screen, we want to move the paddle just in the X position, not in the Y position, because then our paddle would move up on the screen if we touch like the center of the screen. We just want to focus on the X positions of where our screen touch was and where the paddle X should be. So we're just going to relate to the transform dot position, transform dot position dot x is going to be equal to our Raycast hit, which is our hit dot point dot x. Alright, so when you're working with Raycast hits, you can relate to the hit and use the point, and that gives you the specific point on the screen, the x and the y coordinates, and then we can filter that out even more specifically by putting this point x here. So it's pretty much like the transform of Raycast hits is what point stands for. So that's how you set that up. Let's save this, test it out, and we're going to run into some problems. So let's grab our paddle script, and we're going to drag and drop that onto our paddle itself and run the game, and we're going to click, and we aren't getting our paddle to move anywhere. What's going on? Well, what's happening is our rays aren't actually making a hit with anything, with any colliders. But if we click, like for example, over on this whatever this thing is, a wall, or on this wall, it's going to move our paddle as well. So that's kind of weird, that's kind of bizarre. That's not exactly what we want, because it's only going to move the paddle each time it hits an object, as you can see here, this ball. So you know, that's not exactly what we want. So we want to be able to click anywhere on the screen and have it be a hit, have our array hit something no matter what. And how we're going to do that is with adding another object behind our whole setup that we got going on here, kind of like in the background. So any place that we could click on the screen is going to be an automatic hit no matter what. It's hitting our background object. So let's go up to our objects, or game object, create other, and we're just going to create a plane here, and we're going to rotate, or we're going to set this plane position to be 0, 0, 0, and we're going to rotate it by hitting E and then dragging this guy up here, or you can just do a negative rotation of negative 90 or positive 90, probably the same thing. Let's scale this guy up so it fills up our whole screen. So we're going to do R on our pad and just expand this out a bit. Now if you look from a different perspective, it looks like our plane is on the same level as all of our other game objects. We probably want to move it back a little bit since our camera's in the negative Z position. Maybe we should move our plane to like a negative 10, or a positive 10 or a positive 5, something to give it a little bit of distance. So you can either type it out in the inspector, or we can do our W and just drag this guy back here in the Z position. But in our game view, it obviously looks kind of messed up. So what we're also going to have to do is add some sort of a texture to this background. So let's go up to our game or assets folder, our assets tab, and we're going to go down to import package, standard assets for mobile. And it's going to bring in a lot of stuff that we probably won't use in this tutorial series, but it has some materials and stuff that we're going to use. So don't uncheck any of them because it doesn't really matter for a tutorial series, but if you're launching a game, you probably don't want to include assets you aren't going to use. So you could filter these out later for your own game, but as for now, everything's fine. So let's scroll down, open up this assets folder mobile, and we're going to grab the grid or the grid for 2D or the skybox, whatever material that you guys want to use. We're going to grab this after we have our plane selected, and we're just going to grab this guy and drop it into our mesh renderer, into the materials. It might not be expanded like it is here, so you can drop it pretty much anywhere. And look at that, our game is already looking pretty epic. And now also this is a game object. This plane has a mesh collider, so any touch event that we're going to create is going to be true. So when we run this game, we can touch like right here or over here, anywhere pretty much. And oh, I must have messed up right now, guys. I just noticed this. I'm not clicking any buttons and it's moving already. So that's something a little bit new and wasn't meant for the tutorial. Let's go back to our scripts for the paddle and so essentially we're always updating this. It's always going to be true, and then we're always going to check our hit value. And before, what we did is we create another if statement that I forgot. My bad. So let's just create this if statement real quickly, and again, this comes from the input class dot get mouse button. Down is what we're familiar with, and that again is the left click for that. And then we're going to create our bracket here and close off our bracket down here. Sorry, the format's kind of messed up, but that's the essential way that we set up our other mouse input that we've used so far with our menu class. But now we're going to have another problem with this paddle, because if we run our game, it's only going to move once we click, and it's not going to be moving when we click and drag. So what we're going to have to do is go back, and we're going to change this from get mouse button down to just get mouse button. So it's still going to be the same concept, but it's only going to be true when we actually click the left mouse button down when we run our game. Again, you could not include this, and it would just kind of follow along wherever. Probably wouldn't be great for, you know, iPhone or Android or anything like that, but for web development it could work, just moving the mouse around. So let's save this and run it, and I'll show you guys the difference. You probably already expect it. So obviously it's not following my cursor right now like it was the first time, and when we click before, it would just stay there, but I can click and hold down and it will follow me along no matter where I go in the screen. And again, this is why we only define the X position, because if we would have defined the Y position, it would have been right on my cursor, as you can see, and that's not how this game works. So that's why we only define the X position. You guys probably figured that out because you're pretty smart. And we got our paddle working, so that's incredible, right? But let's work with our ball now, because we're gonna have some other difficulties with our ball. So let's jump into our ball script and change some things around as well. What we want is actually a X position and a Y position within the awake method. So we're going to refer to the rigid body as well, and .velocity .y. We're going to set this to be like 10 or something, and let's just save this and run it and see what happens. And we run this, and as you can see, it kind of looks like our ball is somewhat slowing down in the overall velocity, which isn't what we want, and it actually kind of does some weird bouncing here and then just goes back and forth. So the tutorial's getting kind of long, so I'm probably just going to cut it here, and in the next tutorial we'll solve all of the ball problems, and it's going to be pretty awesome. So I will catch you guys then, and I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you later. All you gotta do to support free education is click that subscribe button.